I'm sorry to have changed the places of the topics. And Mr. Rafaf Brzeski, his background is also from the has volunteered to go and take care of that. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I have been asked to speak about the information war and disinformation in a hybrid war. The fight to achieve dominance of human groups over other groups of people is nothing but a war. And since time immemorial, the goal of a war boils down to two solutions, and two solutions only: a long-term domination of the terrain and subordinating the local population, or to a short-term occupation of a terrain, looting it, and taking the population prisoners. Wars can be split into two categories: energy wars and information wars. If someone strikes another person on the head with a stick and takes their asset away, that's an energy war. But if someone persuades someone and entices them to give their assets voluntarily to them, that's information war. In energy wars, you defeat your enemy physically, no matter if it's with a stick or a missile. The difference is only on the degree of technicization of the weapons. In an energy war, the parties fighting destroy the opponent in a clearly defined front. The strikes are quick, potent, visible, and perceptible. Blitzkrieg is an ideal. A side effect of such an energy war are the losses in people and assets. In information wars, the foe is dealt with information, dizzied with the actions from the intelligence agents, propaganda, manipulation, and then they're enslaved with possibly minimalized human and material losses. In an information war, the society is enslaved invisibly and gradually. Sometimes it takes years. The human conscience is the battlefield. The information war is waged here in the heads, in the minds. And at the first stage of the information war, the community to be conquered is demoralized to break its moral backbone, and then the system of values which has been in place for centuries is ruined. They're deprived of their sense of their own dignity. The accomplishments of their forefathers are lied about. They're persuaded that nothing is possible, and then they're persuaded that no opposition makes sense because you need to flow down the stream rather than living in the past. A hybrid war is a crossing of an energy war with information war with different intensities of both models, elements of both models, but with the assumption that the energy element is a support for the information element. If it was the contrary, it would be a regular energy war where somehow standard propaganda activities are used. The goal of the hybrid war stays the same: to control the area and the local population so that they could be persuaded physically or energy-related way, and first of all, information-related way, to put their heads in a yoke, but they're supposed to be persuaded that it's in their best interest. The basic condition of a victory is to wash the brains of a community to be dominated, assuming the control over the area while maintaining the possibly full human resources, whereas human resources is a euphemism. It's something to which we have been reduced. We used to be human beings, persons, and now we're human resources. As in the case of an energy war, where the using of human resources is taking place through visible pressure. In an information war, it's done clandestinely, invisibly, through agents of influence obtained in that area, in that population, and the mass media. You use the mass media, the appropriately steered global organizations, especially TVs and press agency, and often clandestinely taken over mass media of the enemy. In a hybrid and information war, lie plays a principal role. On the information layer, the aggressor starts to superimpose to those attacked an alternative reality designed in line with their own scenario. Such a reality may have nothing or very little to do with the real world. A lie, or rather euphemistically speaking, a modified truth, can be served in various forms or formats, in the form of propaganda, manipulating facts, disinformation, persuasion of the influence agents, and provocation. The number of ways of conveying this modified truth is practically unlimited. It only depends on the ingenuity of the perception manager and the credulity of the recipients. And again, a nice euphemism, perception manager. That's a lie. That's doping the people. But that's what you call perception management. Since the times of Service A, the first central office of the KGB, or maybe even earlier, Moscow mostly alludes to perception management. A Russian has lied and will be lying. The Tsarist, Soviet, or Putinist Russia, no matter. The Tsarist was relatively not very superimposing. The Soviet one was trying to make sure that the lying overstructure should be based on a real basis, whereas the Putinist Russia is cynically blatant. You want, you can believe it. No need to. A good example of this can be the shooting of the Malaysian passenger plane MH17. The catastrophe was then enveloped in an information fog by spreading, manipulating information from ostensibly credible to cynically lying, to cynical lies, and as the following: the Malaysian aircraft was shot down by the Ukrainians, in line with one variant by a missile shot from a fighter or an ground-to-air missile, or it was shot down by Americans to discredit Russia. An explosive exploded in the air. The aircraft was not shut down, it just fell down on its own. The machine flew from Amsterdam on autopilot, and there were no people, only decaying bodies on board. In managing perception, Russia uses, first of all, the television, radio, and the internet, because these are the strongest media affecting emotions, and also relatively volatile. In a printed text, in a newspaper, in a book, you can come back to this. You can turn the page, get back to what was written there. Not on the radio or TV. On the internet, yes, you can, but oftentimes it is then destroyed and deleted.
Well, in the internet, nothing can be lost. However, it might be quite difficult indeed to find truth. once you find a sort of falsified truth and then it is withdrawn. Well, the platform that communicates to the foreign recipients more reliable modified information, well, in most of the cases, these are the facts with certain comments and explanation of an expert, is television, Russia Today, and well, their name has been recently, their logo was changed to RT. Well, the impact of RT is really huge, over 600 million viewers all around the world, and that they can be watched in over 3 million hotel rooms. That was the first YouTube, which in 2013 had 1 billion of hits. RT Facebook profile has 1 million likes. RT broadcasts the programs in Russian, English, Spanish, German, French, and Arab languages. In 2013, it took over the control over another radio broadcast, Głos Rosji, as well as press agency, Novosti, that was recognized during the communist times in the West as being more credible than the official TASS agency. Well, in other words, RT created huge and global information network. The promotion of all those sort of blatant lies is the responsibility of the army of the trolls, and one of its branches is located in Petersburg at the Savushkina 55th Street in Przymorska district, and it operates under the name of the Agency for Internet Research. I believe that some people present here might cast some more light on that and perhaps share more addresses with us. Well, besides propaganda and disinformation, the Russian trolls, they conduct different activities, and this is sort of classical information diversion or subversion. They hope to spread fear and commotion, and they hope to paralyze local authorities, media, and different municipal services. And that was the experience of the United States in December last year. Well, the whole society or local communities were provided falsified information. Militarization of information, as well as the magnitude of the Russian campaign of lies, disinformation and subversion, they were really brainwashing the minds of the Russians, and they were surprised of the worst. Former employees of the factory of the trolls believe that their friends repeat falsified facts that were generated in their factory. However, Western media and Polish media very often operates like the tubes, and they repeat the information concocted in Russia, and they amplify that, and they were developed by the specialists in manipulation of such information. Well, combating information aggression is a difficult task, yet it is possible to do that. Important factors are as follows. Well, wide knowledge, and I think that this is the most important thing to know. As much as possible, the more we know, generally speaking, about everything, as well as our opponents, then it is easier to recognize and try to face this information, to identify fabricated information, as well as to avoid manipulation. Well, using versatile information sources allows or facilitates the whole process of verification. And once we identified manipulated or fabricated information, it is possible to identify the source of this information. Well, knowledge about oneself, as well as own strengths and weaknesses. Well, you cannot really think or reason that your opponent thinks and behaves precisely the way I do it, and that they have the same moral code. No, you have to make that assumptions from the very outset that your opponent is intelligent and clever, merciless and cynical. Anything that is worst will be utilized against us. Well, another important thing is to stay vigilant. Well, you always have to be prepared to face unknown techniques, methods, and solutions. And most of all, one has to continuously develop and strengthen a moral order that is based on the system of old values, since this is the most effective mechanism for self-control of the society, both at the level of the decision-making authorities as well across the whole community across the whole nation, and that order can and should be taught at the level of the family, since once you learn at home about all those principles, then it is really very difficult to annihilate them later. The most important prerequisite in this fight against info aggression is to realize and to help other people to realize that you are a subject of planned and extremely powerful activities of this whole process of perception management, my perception management. And that is valid both about politicians, journalists, experts, well, people of the sort of culture, as well as ordinary people. Info aggressor can spread the venom as long as, people who are contaminated are not aware of this threat. And after that, the efficacy of the application of modified truth would rapidly decline. Once people realize that they are manipulated, then people simply stop to respond to that, and people start to reflect and ponder on what they hear. And in parallel, formal group of internet users, they have more room. So they are the guardians of the truth, or the sort of citizenship counterintelligence. And those people can demask the whole process of manipulation and disinformation of information, but most of all, they can analyze all the links and connections, and they can also try to identify who was the one that initiated this process, who provides new ideas for manipulation-related campaigns. In other words, who by name is responsible for the whole process of falsifying the reality. Well, it is possible, but I have already referred to the sort of information subversion that happened in December last year in the United States. Well, it was just a sort of a small group of people who are patient and persistent, and they have actually found their way to St. Petersburg, to these trolls factories. The authorities of the countries that are under the threat, or perhaps those that are the subject of disinformation aggression, they should create foundations and other institutions to provide financial support for the journalists that face the processes of defamation as a result of identifying the disinformation and identifying the authors of that information. In particular, if these are so-called local authorities recruited by Moscow to join the subversion group. Well, who is such an individual? It is not an individual that would sort of collect information or steal it from a vault. This is an individual spreading falsified information, as well as spreading opinions that are in line with the political line of the one that pays for that. As a result of that, in the democracy, to apprehend red-handed this individual, it is not possible. They will always claim that the views that they spread are their own views. And in democracy, you do not punish people for holding to different views. And I am aware of only one case that such an agent was punished, Mr. Pater. Well, this is the sort of family developing pedophones, and he was caught in France, and he was an utterly effective Soviet agent. And the representatives of different brain trusts and the members of the study groups, experts, they have to be demanded to reveal direct as well as indirect relations with the institutions and companies, Russian companies. Very often it turns out that an expert in a given subject matter, that they articulate certain opinions, and then it turns out that indirectly they are financed by a different company registered in Moscow. Well, ladies and gentlemen, all the disinformation cases will not be identified, and then, it is not possible to combat all of them. However, we have to continuously try to do that. Otherwise, Moscow will impose on us their own alternative reality. This is what they have already started to do it quite significantly. Putin would have discontinued that, should that not be effective. And as a result of that, Moscow will be managing or influencing our perception of the world. Thank you very much.
Dziękuję bardzo. Jeśli są jakieś pytania, to proszę najwyżej
Thank you very much. Should you have any question, I think that we can allow for 2 questions to be asked, since we are going to have now a short panel of journalists. In other words, the question is what the journalists can do to try to fight to combat this manipulation. Currently, Moscow has been trying to make sure that nations are in conflict. This is what they have been doing for many years, where they create a sort of provocation. And in other words, anything you do, whatever you do, it's a trap, really. It is going to be beneficial for the empire, for Russia, since they are capable of sort of developing conflicts. So they play on the emotions of different nations. And as a result of that, we are facing the wall. So in other words, if we try to combat that, if we try to prevent that, well, some of our society, or some people, representatives of our nation, believe that such people are traitors, and in a way the situation becomes more and more tense. So how to combat that, how to fight that situation, this is what we are going to discuss that, and what might be the role of the journalist, so that the journalists do not cease to be journalists, and so that they do not become simple instruments of the authorities, in the hands of the authorities, that are sort of willing in a way to spark the war between the nations. Well, do you have any questions? During the martial law, he was helping us.
Those papers were excellent. Could we get an electronic version of both of your talks? I'd be happy to post them both on my website, which has a lot of viewers. And how many people in Poland, for example, or any of the other countries represented here, believe the version about what happened to MH17 that Russia television has been trying to put out? Do you have any estimates of that?
I do not have estimates, but it is. I was surprised by the large group of people who belong to one or another of the version I presented here. So these rotten corpses was so cynical and unbelievable that no one believed in it. But the Ukrainian, that it was Ukrainians who shut down this plane, this passenger plane, this Malaysian passenger plane, this version was believed by many persons. So it is a question that in many ways, there's such a long list and of the explanations, Moscow explanations, I think were addressed to the different group of people. Some people will believe in corpses, some people will believe in Ukrainian hand in the shooting this particular airplane. But it was due to the group of people who used to sort out information in this Dutch people mostly, which used to sort out information readily available legally in the so-called open market of information. These people created an alternative report, very interesting report on who, or more, not now who, because it will be the second report who, but how this book or buck, whatever you will pronounce, B-U-K, rocket launcher simply moved out from the Russia to the Ukraine. How is this everything happened? Bit by bit, they collected enough evidence simply to use it later in this report and reconstruct the whole road, let's say the whole way this launcher, this book launcher made from the Russia to the Ukraine and back. This is what I used to call the citizens intelligence or citizens counterintelligence, because they are citizens who did it. They are simply very passionate citizens who did it. Okay, thank you.
I talk again. So maybe I forgot to introduce myself last time. Man Yan is my name. Yeah. People call me a China expert in Germany, and also I am a human rights advocate. And profession, I'm an international businessman. Also, 10 years ago, I still do some business with China. So I think I know a little bit about China. Now, I find the last speech also very interesting to combat the disinformation. And it's very interesting because there is a lot of parallel between the Russia Empire, you call it, yeah, and China, maybe Chinese Empire. Russia has this RT, Russia Today television, covering, almost the whole world. China has similar thing, CCTV, Central Chinese Television. They are also sent in different language, beam out from 36 satellites covering the whole globe. Yeah? In most five-star hotel, you can also watch CCTV in English. So now I want to share with you an example of how to combat disinformation. We are all Democrats and human rights advocates. We don't stop people talking, right? So in the case of disinformation, we have to, so to say, fight back with right information. Yeah. So for me, information war is the best war because it's a peaceful war, right? We only believe in peaceful way. So I give you an example. To combat the propaganda in CCTV, I have to praise Falun Gong practitioners because they were brutally persecuted in China. But in the same time, the Chinese Communist Party has all the money and power to beam out all that disinformation in the whole world. So what they did is they, really courageous, they decided after 1 year of persecution that they built their own television station, which is called NTD-TV, New Tang Dynasty Television. And this television is now broadcasting in most part of the world, but the best of it is, in cooperation with a satellite company, it beams out also over China. Okay? The Communist Party of China hate it. But you see, they cannot shoot it down because that will create a big trouble in the world because China has also signed an international treaty. No country is allowed to shoot down any communication satellite from another country. So this satellite beam out over China and cover about 4/4 of China. And they cannot stop it. The only way they try to stop it is in China, it's forbidden without license to have a parabol antenna, satellite antenna. Is crazy. And there are a lot of police car running around in all the big city to see if that house has a satellite antenna. And then they will check it whether they have, But anyway, it's one good example of combating disinformation. And other good example is, internet is a very important information channel today. Now, in China, they have censorship in internet. So most Chinese do not have a free access to internet. And again, because these, all dictators, they need disinformation to justify their atrocity. So the Falun Gong practitioner also did a very good job here. They were very much persecuted. So what they did is, Falun Gong practitioner outside China, they developed software which can combat such censorship. So the Chinese people, or any people, actually the Iranian, the Tunisian people did the same thing. You can free download this software, anti-blocking software, into your computer. So then a Chinese person in China can access internet, any website, without the state security knowing it. It's a smart software that come around the problem. So I'm just saying that join the information war. It's a peaceful war, and you need all your wisdom and your intelligence to do it. So thank you.
Dziękuję.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Well, information war. In other words, spreading falsified information is easier to combat or easier to win. You can counteract that war. However, if in war manipulation is used, if the whole nations are against one another, then I have to tell you that I have seen that myself. That's what I have witnessed myself. I have sort of worked in the collapsing Soviet Union, and I saw the massacre of the Turks in the Fergana Valley, and I could see the way Karabakh Committee was created, how they sort of appeal to the emotions of people, of Azerbaijan people as well as Armenia, and how this sort of mechanism is fueled, and then how this spiral bursts. And I could see Abkhazia and Ossetia, Georgia wars, and I could see in a way the whole country is damaged, and I could see the attempt to instigate Polish-Lithuanian war in 1990s. We sort of managed to disarm this project. However, we have Moscow continues to attempt that. Well, all the enemies use the same methods actually. Well, in Moscow they are trying to sort of spark, to instigate a conflict in Moscow. They know that if the Poles and if the Ukrainians starts to cooperate, they might forget. No, let me reiterate. They will not forget about all the harm, and they will try to explain all the harm that was done. However, they will not act in an emotional way. So in other words, they will know what their national interest is about here and now without forgetting what happened in the past, since what has happened in the past should be a warning to make sure that it should never be repeated. And in that way, this disintegration will fail. However, well, very often, the journalists well, they are a weapon. They are used as a weapon, and they are utilized in this war. And once you try to influence, once you try to manipulate the brain, you arrive at the following situation. And some Muslims, in a way, when they were killed, when they were dying in different attacks, suicidal attacks, they are convinced that they do it for Allah. And I think that this is precisely where the tragedy occurs. And on the top of that, the empire uses a different method where they operate under someone else's banner. And I have to remind you that the attack on Sir John Paul II, it was made by a Turk. And then there was a Bulgarian trace that led people to Moscow. And I deeply believe, well, the Ali Akça, well, he must have been convinced that what he was doing was a right thing to do. And, an attack on a Soviet consul in Lviv, and it was committed by the Ukrainian guy, a 19-year-old Ukrainian guy, and he was convinced, he was positive that he was doing something really good, that it was a proper thing to do, and it turned out that it was only and exclusively about making sure that the Germans believe that he would sort of stop to take money from the Kremlin, and the thinking of Kremlin was straightforward. With many people, we might sort of kill a consul, and we will solve a problem. And we have to be aware of that. He was, and it was not the consul who was murdered. It was a coincidental passerby. So should we? Do you have any further questions, or perhaps final concluding comments?
Teraz właśnie dziennikarze, ci, którzy są bardzo często wykorzystywani, których zawód traci wiarygodność, tworzy się dziennikarstwo obywatelskie. Widzimy tutaj na przykład metodę obejścia telewizji, mediów państwowych. Zapraszam.